Honeybit's dad is a little on the strange side. He's obsessed with the possibility of the world ending and likes to always be prepared. One day he went on a really intense rant about the inevitable doomsday. He looked at Honeybits and said, "If there's ever an apocalypse, no matter what, always climb the mountain." The mountain he was referring to was a huge pile of compost in the back of their house. He deliberately let this pile grow really high so that you could climb up onto the roof. He'll show you all.
In high school, Emoji had a group of friends who were real downers. They were always talking about how bad life was treating them. If Emoji or any of her friends had a bad day, the downer friends would let everyone know they'd had a worse one. It got to the point where these downer friends were practically boasting about how shitty and unlucky their lives were. They would have competitions over who had the saddest life. But the thing is, they wouldn't even listen to each other's stories. They'd just keep interrupting each other, arguing back and forth about whose life was worse.
When Tulip was 8 years old, his parents used to leave him and his little sister with their older cousin Austin. Austin was very untrustworthy and was always abandoning his babysitting duties to smoke, steal, and hang out with his friends. One night, after Austin waved goodbye to Tulip's parents, he gave Tulip and his sister some chicken nuggets, then ran off to cause trouble with his friends. On this particular night, he was slightly more responsible than normal and actually arranged a replacement babysitter. Unfortunately, the replacement was his friend's 9-year-old sister, who was barely older than Tulip. When Tulip's parents came home, they found their children sitting at the table playing Monopoly with the 9-year-old stranger. Austin was banned from ever babysitting again.
For Froggy's birthday, she went to Outback Steakhouse and got to invite 2 friends. Froggy's mom invited a third surprise guest, though. It was an old friend she hadn't seen in 3 years. Froggy was so surprised and happy to see her friend, she couldn't help but cry. It was the best birthday ever, or at least it would have been. One of Froggy's other friends got insanely jealous over how happy she was to see her long-lost friend. The friend's mom was upset about her daughter's jealous behavior, so when dessert came around, it became a kind of a situation. The girl wanted a strawberry from her mom's dessert, but nope. Her mom wasn't willing to part with even one piece of it. This escalated into a very loud shouting match and a fork war that made the entire restaurant turn and stare. Even the waiter was dumbfounded by the fact that there was yelling at the top of their lungs over a piece of strawberry. It wasn't even a whole strawberry either. It was just a slice. One day at Walmart, Ursa saw a man and a woman arguing with each other. The woman was screaming things like, "I always get this kind," and "Why don't you go kill yourself?" She poked her head around the corner and saw what they were fighting over and had to walk away because she started laughing so hard. The woman was fighting with the guy over a 12-pack of toilet paper. Eventually, employees had to kick her out of the store, and they said she was banned from ever coming back again.
One day, Spinal Palm's teacher was collecting everyone's homework from the day before. The thing is, Spinal Palm had forgotten to do the assignment. Rather than taking the F, he lied to the teacher. When passing up the papers, Spinal Palm pretended to place his paper in the rest of the pile. Later on, when the teacher realized his paper was gone, she asked Spinal Palm if he did his homework. He said, "I did. I don't know why it would disappear." He had a reputation of always handing in assignments and homework on time and without any question. Also, he was probably the most dedicated, hardworking, and honest student in class. The teacher believed his story and started questioning the people in the row about trying to sabotage him by taking his work from the pile. She gave him an A despite no one admitting the false ordeal.
When Tulip was 10, his mom wanted him to get some milk from the store. So he got on the train and sat down on one of the seats. During the ride, a guy suddenly stood up and started to strip off his clothes. Once he was completely naked, he began to dance on the pole in the middle of the train. When the train reached a stop, the cops took him away. Tulip decided to walk from then on.
Endura was working at Walmart one day when a customer came up to her and asked, "Can you stop making KitKats? My son is allergic to them and every time we come in he wants them, but he has to go to the hospital after eating them." Pandora had to explain for 15 minutes that they didn't make the KitKats and couldn't stop selling them because one person is allergic. So whenever Pandora sees the customer with her son, they take the KitKats and hide them from people.
One time my brother wrote the answers on the side of his shoe, so all he had to do was tilt his foot slightly. Another time, taking inspiration from Pringle, he wrote the answers on the interior side of his glasses. All he had to do is take them off and act like he was thinking. And for the final exam, he wore contacts and carried glasses but didn't wear them. He wrote on the glass with a white marker, and because the desk was black, he could see all 40 answers to the quiz. He ended up getting 100% for every test.
In 7th grade, Captain and his class began to celebrate after taking a test. He was very shy, so he didn't have any friends. As a result, he felt lonely. He was so lonely that he wanted to get everyone's attention in some way. Just then, he got an idea. He stood on top of a desk in front of the classroom and yelled at everyone to look at him. Once all eyes were on him, Captain started to dance like a chicken and rap like one. Everyone laughed. Proud of himself, Captain began to climb down from the desk where he lost his balance and fell on his face. The fall made everyone laugh even harder. Captain couldn't help but laugh as well. Since that day, he became the class's second-class clown.
Spinal Palm and Princess Proton were once at a pharmacy casually browsing the items for sale. Another customer ran into the shop and grabbed a bottle of lube, ran up to the cashier, who was a young woman, and then he proceeded to pull down his pants, lube up his junk, and jerk himself off. Instead of being angry or scared, the cashier just sighed and said to him, "Really? You're doing this again, Greg." Spinal Palm and Princess Proton headed straight for the exit, but as they were leaving, the pervert winked at Spinal Palm and said, "Hey, handsome." Police officers arrived shortly after and arrested the crazy customer. What the fuck?
When Zaraganba was 7 years old, he was cleaning out the dishwasher when his hand slipped and ended up dropping one of the dinner plates and breaking it. When his parents rushed in to see what happened, he realized he was in big trouble. They told him to sit in the laundry room while they discussed his punishment. A few minutes later, they came into the room and told him that he would have to sleep on the dog's bed instead of his own. That night, he lay in the kennel grumbling, while his dog slept in the luxury of his bed.
Dolan's brother, Zaraganba, once took him to a not-so-well-known Comic-Con. Dolan thought it was pretty cool since they were selling a few comics and other things. Then he saw people gathering at a stage, so he decided to join them. It turned out that Superman, or someone in cosplay, was on the stage. Dolan was excited to see him until a drunk guy jumped onto the stage and literally threw Superman off. The drunk guy then said, "You're not Superman!" That was when he stripped naked, scarring Dolan for life. On his first day at McDonald's, Helbin had a man come through the drive-thru who told him that his wife was a few cars behind him. He went on to tell Helbin that he would pay him a little extra if he spit in his wife's food. So Helbin asked his co-worker friend to do the deed instead. Laughing, his friend agreed to do it in his place. Despite not doing it, Helbin still got to keep the $10 the man gave him.
One time when it snowed, Helbin and his friend went for a walk on the icy roads. Along the way, and for some reason, they decided to make a snowman in the middle of the road. It wasn't anything unusual until Helbin asked his friends,
"What would it feel like to put my dick in this snowman?"
So his friends got a stick and made a hole in the snowman, then watched as Helbin dry humped it.
Hellbent's had his fair share of nightmares, but this one was so bad it made him want to sleep in his brother's room. In his dream, Hellbent and some friends went into a haunted maze on Halloween. They heard strange noises as they walked through a terrifying cornfield. When Hellbent turned to investigate, he saw a man running from a scarecrow with a hook for a hand. The scarecrow caught up to the man and skinned him alive. Hellbent ran towards a nearby house that smelled like cotton candy. When he got there, he discovered the room was full of people trapped in a cotton candy web. The web had been put there by a gang of murderous clowns, of course. These clowns captured Hellbent and put him inside a weird cocoon. They pointed their guns at him and started laughing like complete psychopaths. Hellbent woke up screaming, and in his bed was a huge wet patch. Was it sweat, piss, or cum? No one knows.
When Sweet Commando was in the army, he had a drill sergeant who gave him a series of the dumbest jobs ever. One time, the sergeant happened to catch Sweet Commando just standing around with nothing to do. He decided Sweet Commando needed to be occupied, so he gave him some stupid tasks that he had to do for a whole month. Every day, Sweet Commando had to sweep out the sandpit, vacuum the parking lots, and organize a huge pile of rocks by size and color. By the end of the day, Sweet Commando would feel absolutely exhausted. even though he didn't really do anything. He quickly learned never to let a drill sergeant see him standing around.
Mrs. Theedy, Melissa's third grade teacher, noticed a boy in her class was always late and he missed class multiple times a month. She didn't ignore this or punish the kid. She sat down with him and she asked him why. It turned out he was a child of a single mom who worked so hard his older siblings had the job of waking him up and getting him ready for school. Being much older and still mourning the loss of their father, they were skipping school and ignoring their task. So Mrs. Theedy bought him an alarm clock and made sure he had breakfast by getting everyone to eat first thing in the morning. For the rest of the time this kid was in school, she gave him the help that he needed.
Melissa and her friend had a crush on the same guy and neither of them would give him up. Melissa told her friend that if she could beat Melissa in a game, she would back down. Melissa won the game, so her friend started telling her crush that Melissa kicked her dog. The story spread through the whole school, so Melissa started telling everyone the exact opposite, that her friend had kicked Melissa's dog. Somehow, Melissa ended up winning the rumor war, and she ended up dating their crush. Melissa and her friend apologized and remained friends. Now, Melissa's friend has a boyfriend as well, and they both laugh when one of them brings it up.
As a middle child, Doopy never felt like she got enough attention from her family. So when her parents asked her to watch her little sister, Doopy decided it was time to do something crazy. First, she ran into the bathroom, took her dad's clippers, and shaved her whole head bald. Then she told her little sister that they were gonna play a game. This game involved wrapping her sister in a blanket and rolling her down a very tall staircase. After about an hour of that, Doopy remembered just how jealous she was of her sister, so she snatched the blanket away and let her sister fall down the stairs without any padding. Right at that moment, Doopy's dad walked in and saw his youngest daughter falling down the stairs screaming. He looked up and saw Doopy standing at the top of the stairs with a bald head and a crazy smile. Doopy tried to say her hair fell out because of stress, but her parents didn't believe her. She was grounded for months. Actually, that's not too bad. People usually get like 5 years for attempted murder.
During high school, Melissa would attend an all-day camp once a year. The first year of camp, Melissa became friends with 2 other girls, and they developed a rivalry with a trio of boys. However, when she signed up again for the second year, the 2 girls she befriended weren't there. She sat in the corner alone until 2 boys walked up to her. They were 2/3 of the male trio. One of them commented on her Pokemon t-shirt, and they bonded over their love of the series. Along with the other boy, the 3 of them became fast friends. Once again, summer ended, and they said goodbye to each other. In the 3rd year of camp, only Melissa and the boy who also loved Pokemon remained. At this time, she realized that she was developing feelings for him. On the final day of camp, Melissa gave him a hug, but then ran off due to embarrassment. Luckily, they had exchanged numbers, and later in that week, she received a text from him. Ooh. He asked Melissa if she liked him. She responded with yes, then waited 10 agonizing seconds for a reply. It read, "I like you too, but I just moved to New Mexico." That was halfway across the country for Melissa. They lost contact until Christmas Eve when she received a text from him saying Merry Christmas. Melissa responded with a witty Pokemon flirt plus a Merry Christmas to you too. They picked up almost where they left off, texting for a couple of days. Melissa then decided to go for it, asking him, "What are we? Are we together?" His response was, will you be my girlfriend?" They have been a happy couple ever since.
Sweet Commander was a military kid, so he was constantly moving schools. When he was around 5 or 6 years old, he went to a brand new school, and one day his head started itching. He scratched it, but the teacher saw him and forced him to stand in front of the entire class while she looked for lice. The other students called him Bug Bite for 3 months until he eventually moved to a new place.
When Hellbent was in 1st grade, he went to the cinema with his class on a field trip. During the movie, he drank 2 liters of cola, so when they were on their way back to school, he really needed to pee. Unfortunately, he ended up peeing his pants just before he made it to the bathroom. As he went into the bathroom to change his pee-covered pants, his friends walked in to use the toilet as well, only to see an entire view of Helbin's naked ass. For some reason, Helbin forgot to close the bathroom stall. They still laugh about it to this day.
There was this one time where I was being just a giant cunt in class like usual. I was chewing the end of my pen, and unfortunately, this time it happened to explode in my mouth, and ink went all over the roof of my mouth, all over my tongue. It was unsalvageable. And so my friend next to me was like, dude, get some water now. And so I stood up and I went to walk out of the classroom. The teacher at the last second before I got out, she said, Dolan, hold up. Where are you going? And I turned to her and I was like, And she was like, no, I haven't given you clearance to leave the class yet. Sit back down. So me, with my fucking mouth filled with ink, probably dying from poisoning, I sat my ass back down in the chair and I stared at her like, this is how I die? Because of this bitch? She won't let me leave the room to fucking wash my mouth out. So I sat there for, I think, about 5 minutes. At this point, I'm fucking worried now. I think I am going to die. I was like 9 or 10 at the time. This shit was real, alright? This is too much for me. And then eventually, once the teacher came closer, looked at me and kind of realized, oh shit, I better actually deal with this or I will be fired. She reluctantly said, okay, you've learnt your lesson now. You can leave the classroom and go wash your mouth out. And all I'm thinking in my head is, this bitch, right? This bitch, I'm gonna fucking hunt you down, right? After class, alright? I may cut your brakes. I can't even remember the teacher's name. Every time I think of her face, I just want to projectile vomit for a bit.
One time, Salty Squid and his roommate Legna went to a party. Though Salty Squid didn't drink that much, Legna certainly did. When they got home, Legna started throwing apples out of the second floor window. He threw one, then went down to see if it shattered or broke, then went back up. He continued doing that for 2 hours, saying, "Why aren't these phones shattering or breaking?" Salty Squid just facepalmed and said, "Go to sleep, Legna."
One day, Ghost Toast rode his bike over to his friend's house. It was a really hot summer, so they planned to stay in and play video games all day. When he got there, he noticed he had a text from his friend saying he had to go to the shops with his mum. He said he'd be back in 10 minutes and that Ghost Toast should just let himself in. But when Ghost Toast went inside, he saw something that he can never unsee. His friend's dad was standing in front of the air conditioner unit with his pants around his ankles. With his fingers, he was spreading his ass cheeks wide so that the cool air could get in there. They locked eyes for 3 excruciating seconds. Then, Ghost Toast excused himself and rode straight back home.
One day, Sidious invited his friend Ghost Toast over. They were hanging out, playing games in his room when Ghost Toast said he needed to pee. So Sidious led him to the bathroom, but it was occupied, so they went to the second bathroom, which was inside Sidious's grandma's bedroom. When Ghost Toast finished doing his business, he walked out of the bathroom to find Sidious' grandma getting changed. Her saggy boobs right in his face. He was in shock. He ran for his life out of the house all the way back home. Sidious found out what happened and decided he might not invite his friends over again when his grandma was home.
One time, Pringle and his friend were skateboarding by a canal when Pringle's board hit a pebble. It flew into the canal, and naturally, Pringle tried to go after it, but ended up falling into the canal. The sides were so steep that not even a grown man could climb up, not to mention there were at least 20 shopping carts in the water and a bunch of other dangerous things that could latch onto somebody and pull them down. Pringle finally found a pile of mud to stand on until the fire department came. He was still very shaky after they got him out, and unfortunately, Pringle never got his board back. Spinal Palm took the bus home one day. He sat in the back listening to music. A couple of stops later, a drunk middle-aged man stepped on. On the way to the back of the bus, he noticed the drunk man almost falling a few times. Once he got to Spinal Palm's row, he sat as close to him as he could. At first, he ignored the man and tried to focus on his music, but the man screamed for attention. Not wanting to be rude, Spinal Palm listened to the man's story. The man told him about his house, his wife, and the reason why he was so drunk. He didn't care about what the man was telling him until he blurted out about how Spinal Palm was fat and said it was because all kids nowadays just played video games. The man went on to say that if he wanted to be in shape like him, then he should go out and explore. He even suggested he go down to a ditch, find a fox or some other animal, and then flay it with a pocket knife. Spinal Palm was angry, yet baffled. As soon as the man got off the bus, he just laughed. One time in Gooby's childhood, her neighbors started blasting insanely loud music in the middle of the night. They did this every single night, from dusk till dawn. Gooby's dad decided that enough was enough, and they marched over there and demanded that they stop. They acted really apologetic and told them not to worry. But as soon as Gooby and her father got home and sat down, the music started again, even louder. The next morning, they woke up to see their entire house covered in toilet paper and their car window smashed in. Unsurprisingly, that was the day they decided to move house.
One summer, Hellbent went on vacation with his boyfriend. He hadn't told any of his friends about his vacation because he hadn't come out yet. When they landed on the island, Hellbent told his boyfriend that one of the passengers on the plane looked exactly like his best friend. A couple days later, they were sitting near the bench when Hellbent had to use the bathroom. After going, he came out of the stall to see the passenger who looked like his best friend. Well, it turned out that it was his best friend. Hellbent tried to sneak past him, but his friend saw him before he was able to make it out of the bathroom. After talking to each other, Hellbent learned that his best friend was also there with his boyfriend, which was surprising because he had always heard his friend talk about girls in their class.
When Pandora worked at her part-time job as a shelf stacker, she crouched down while stacking cat food on the lowest shelf. She turned when she felt like someone was watching her. It was an old man, and he was standing behind her. He said, "You're ruining your legs for your future husband." Pandora then said,
Well, I don't know about my future husband. I do know that my current husband likes my legs just fine.
With that, she turned and hurried away from the man so she could resume her job. That was the weirdest advice she had ever received.
One time, Sidious got very drunk downtown with his friends. Since he couldn't drive, he texted his girlfriend and she agreed to pick him up. While she was on her way, drunk Sidious literally forgot he'd arranged a ride with her and called himself a cab. When he got home, he passed out in bed without a second thought while his poor girlfriend drove around for an hour looking for him. When she got home, she was pissed off but relieved he was okay. Later that night, Sidious got up to go to the bathroom. His girlfriend followed him and found him standing in the bathroom doorway completely naked, peeing all over the floor. She yelled at him and Sidious had to mop up his own piss with a towel. To this day, he can't believe his girlfriend put up with so much of his shit. She even went on to marry him. What a woman.
Every day, Tolop gets asked the same question. All employees, hey, excuse me, do you work here? He'll be wearing a name tag, a uniform with the company logo on it, putting stock on shelves, sweeping the floor, and someone will still come up and ask him. One day he decided that stupid questions need stupid answers, so he said,
No, ma'am. I just like to dress up as an employee when I go shopping.
He then pointed at his co-worker and said,
But I think that guy over there, he'll be able to help you.
the insane part is the customer actually believed this.
I used to be very into metal music. I used to go see a lot of metal and punk bands. I would go to shows a lot with friends, but on one night I went out expecting to see friends, or at least somebody I knew. I spent a long time walking around and didn't actually see anyone, which was a bit of a surprise. It was somewhere I went a lot and just expected to see people. After a while of walking around, a very cute girl asked me to take a picture of her group of friends. I stopped and took a picture and we chatted, and we got on really well, and we ended up speaking for most of the night. We didn't swap numbers or anything because I had a girlfriend at the time, but we saw each other a couple of times after that. We saw each other more and more, and eventually it worked out and we got together. And we've been together a long time since then.
Sidious and his dad were having a conversation outside of their house one night when a flying object appeared in the sky above them. They could tell it wasn't a plane nor a drone, but it was about the size of a car and had no lights on it. It was a very dark night, and they watched as it floated slowly and silently above them. His dad was convinced it was a UFO and tried to take a picture, but the UFO made a sharp turn and instantly disappeared. Still, to this day, they don't know what it could have been.
Pandora was at a party at a friend's house one time and was having a great time. But she went to the bathroom and noticed something weird on the toilet. It was a little gold baby statue in a crawling position with a naked butt and everything. The statue had a little pair of bronzed booties with her friend's name on them. And that's how Pandora learned her friend's first name. The name she and everybody else knew her friend by was actually his middle name.
When Pandora was younger, she was really into a creepy show full of demons and horrifying creatures. Then, when she was around 8 years old, she decided to get artistic and paint a few of her Barbies like the creatures. When Pandora's parents walked in on her, they thought she belonged in a mental asylum. It wasn't because of the drawings, though. She had cut herself with scissors and covered the Barbies in her blood.